Join us in shaping the future of PlayFi and show the world a new path of game monetization is not only possible, but desirable. Welcome back, Metaverse. I'm thrilled to be joining you today to look at another project that aims to completely upend the gaming universe. Brooks Brown and his team at Noor have a very untraditional take on how gaming should work. Noor is a development studio building out a gaming platform that focuses on a very unique monetization approach. As we've discussed, gaming studios have been struggling to find the right fit regarding the monetization of their games. In the description below, you'll find the link to my map of the gaming universe if you haven't had a chance to watch that video. In it, I explain how Web3 games are transitioning to a new model of asset ownership, one in which you, as the gamer, retain the right to buy, transfer, and sell all of your in-game assets and property. Well, I'm Animositas, and today we're going to talk about a completely different paradigm that throws that map entirely out the window. So let's get right into it, and I'll show you what Annie knows about Noor and the future of PlayFi. Over the last 50 years, gaming studios have used different monetization approaches to find the right balance between overall costs and overall fun for gamers. The industry has shifted between topics like pay for cosmetics, pay to win, pay per gameplay loops over time, and they've even implemented systems such as subscription-based services or pay for utility. All of these are focused on attracting different types of gamers with propensity for monetization. There's nothing wrong with any given model, although some of them do have different levels of animosity from gamers. But while most Web3 games that are being developed right now are settling into one or multiple of these categories, Noor is trying something a little bit different. Well, in actuality, it's a lot different. And so I'd like to share with you not my own words, but Brooks Brown, the lead founder of Noor.
It's Noor Shooter. Great. Inside of that, there's no economy. You literally sign in via your token that you've got, and we know who it is. And our backend / all of the disparate pieces of our tokenage sort of work and do their thing. But inside of the game, we don't have a marketplace. There's no need. You don't buy and sell items. You're not trading things. You're not collecting stuff. You're just playing and getting really good. The same way when you go to a baseball stadium, like to play, or down the field to play with your son soccer, you're not like also at the bank, which is what a lot of these things do.
So how do you pull monetization out of the gameplay experience entirely? Well, it goes back to having a solid understanding of how businesses work. So bear with me while we talk about the 5 key stakeholder groups that are involved in both traditional sports games as well as in gaming. The first group is suppliers who provide the raw material and investors who provide capital to fund the overall market. Next, we have employers who enable the product to be created and delivered. And finally, there are customers who consume the overall product. Let's think through how this works in the original type of gaming, sports. In competitive sports, as we go through who fills each individual stakeholder role, we start with a governing agency or league or schedulers who will typically set up seasons or tournaments of gameplay to take place. A good example of these suppliers would be FIFA or the Olympics Agency or the NFL. They don't produce the games themselves, but they create the foundation and the economic rules involved. Next, the investors are a mix of owners of individual sports teams, founders, or sponsors. They're the ones bearing the risk of the team or individual successes or failures, and are the ones earning most of the profit, or in some cases, losing the most money if it goes poorly. The product being produced are the players, the athletes, and compelling gameplay. Regardless if it's an individual or team sport, no one comes to watch a particular type of ball, they're coming for the players, and therefore the players are being paid as such, the main value drivers to the ecosystem. Whether you're watching a fullback in football, or a fullback in football, the value of the players bringing to his team determines how much he or she is paid. The employees are the ones creating the environment in which the product can be enjoyed. There are referees, administrators, marketers, and so on that make the system run smoothly. Their job is to put the players in a fair and engaging environment and then move out of the way. The customers are the spectators and fans. They're the ones deriving value from the product and therefore paid to observe, enjoy, and be part of the community. The camaraderie and esprit de corps felt by followers and fans of a specific player or team is worth paying for, and that's true whether you're enjoying victory or suffering the taste of defeat. In the world of gaming or eSports, this model doesn't really exist. But Noor's take is that it can, and it should. In a recent Discord post, Brooks stated, "I believe gaming accidentally brought metagamers and players together, and didn't realize it through how free-to-play games work. The things that drive metagamers are in playing the market and the meta. The players just want to play. So if players can just play, like in sports, they will come in droves if our games are even competent. And if metagamers can do their thing, we can actually have people enjoying themselves and being the tapestry that we need for real tournaments and competition." So why did gaming and esports not develop the same way as traditional sports? Well, the reasons are multifaceted, but I'm going to highlight just 3 for you today. The first reason is that there's a relative lack of interest compared to traditional sports. The shelf life of a popular video game spans years, or even in the most popular cases, only a decade or so. The audience for a given gaming title is also much smaller than for a consequent sport in the real world. Let's contrast a game that may have a few million players at any given time against soccer, or football as it's called in most of the world. And in that case, football has over 250 million players at any given time. It's existed for 2,500 years compared to just the decade that a given game title might be popular. We're typically missing a lot of the scale that's needed for esports to take the same route as traditional sports have. Secondly, the technology and structures that are needed to stream esports have only existed for a few decades. It's only been since the late 1900s and early 2000s that esports platforms became popular, starting with converted cable channels that allowed streaming of individual titles to take place. Twitch, the world's largest online gaming streaming service, only launched in 2011. And lastly, for a long time, there was a lack of funding for prize pools to develop. You can't have players without payment for them. And so in the same way that the sports world needs revenue, so does the esports world. Prize pools nowadays exist in the millions of dollars for many game titles. However, this wasn't true until fairly recently. In fact, if you go back and look, just 15 years ago, the entirety of the largest esports tournaments in history were the same dollar amount as one single game during the Super Bowl in the US in 2005. With all of that in mind, let's go back and look at the models that did actually develop over time in the traditional gaming market. And we're going to go to our structure of 5 key stakeholders again. Firstly, in traditional gaming, the game developers and game marketers serve as suppliers to the system. Game studio founders, angel investors, or VCs provide the funding for starting capital as investors. The product that is produced depends slightly on the genre of game, but it's always some sort of a platform, a world, a game universe. There may be individual leagues or seasons or releases that gamers enjoy, but whatever the genre is, the product being sold is the software itself. And the true employees providing the price and value mechanism are the in-game economists and analysts. Whether you're paying through microtransactions or cosmetics, or purchasing a particular version of a game, they're the ones dictating the value proposition. And the customers are the gamers. The gamer enjoys the benefit and pays for the product. Spectators and fans have very little place in most gaming structures today. They're rarely monetized or incentivized to watch except for through some very specific streaming services. And this process doesn't appear to be working out that well. In fact, in my video where I talk about what gamers want in the description below, I explain how gamers have rapidly seen quality losses over time. And it doesn't appear to be improving anytime soon. The game development studios, in an ever more competitive marketplace, are focusing primarily on short-term monetization approaches through analytics, instead of focusing on overall gameplay design and development. Meanwhile, the developers themselves and marketers are finding it more and more difficult for them to have a true impact on the quality of the game and not just the monetization side. So with this in mind, Brooks and the team at Noor asked the question, what can we do to upend these gaming models? Their answer was going back to the stakeholder matrix that I showed earlier and applying that model that we saw with regular sports to esports. The first question that we have to ask is, what if gamers are not actually the end customers of gaming, but instead, what if they're the product? Noor aims to bring players of all competitive abilities together into a vibrant ecosystem and let them compete in a permadeath style of game to determine who are the very best players in the world. And you don't charge the best players in the world to compete at your game. You pay them to do it. The games and the competitions themselves become a compelling spectacle with a meaningful loss of risk for the players involved. This then creates demand for spectators, who are once again the customers in this gaming model. Fans will back individual teams or players and are happy to pay to be entertained. Meanwhile, the game developers and marketers are once again employees building the meaningful part of the gaming system, the gameplay itself. In the same way that referees and marketers set up the gameplay system and parameters in sports, the game developers provide the structure and then step back to let the gamers take their rightful place on the stage in the competition. The game economists and analysts still have a role as the supplier of the information and structure to the economics market of the metagame. And the owners, founders, and sponsors backing individual teams or players become the investors. These roles effectively provide capital for the system to work, and as is normally the case in an efficient market, they're the ones that are either absorbing the losses or reaping the profits from that endeavor. This is all made possible through the Web3 technology on the blockchain. By creating monetizable and immutable rights for investors to purchase, we have NFTs that are allowing players to own the rights to the metagame itself. So for instance, in the Nor universe, there are different aspects that have properties that can influence the metagame. For instance, one particular aspect may give you the option of purchasing a sponsorship for a particular team or player. You could own some share of marketing revenue, sell tickets, or provide merchandise provisioning for fans. These individual aspects, created as NFTs and held by individuals, can then be sold by a person to a VC or a company that's involved in marketing eSports overall. And through this mechanic, the economic half of the gaming ecosystem is then split from the gameplay half, providing a cleaner expectation of the process of the sporting event itself. This structure allows the product and the employees to have their own loop where only gameplay is relevant, and all the noise of the metagame is separated completely. And those that are electing to participate in the metagame or the economic side of the equation aren't involved in the competitions in the arena itself. So, when will Nor release? Well, in the best time-honored fashion, the best answer I can give you right now is soon, as Brooks and the team are hung up on providing a very high-quality customer experience. To quote Shigeru Miyamoto, a delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever bad. And Nor wants to ensure that their first impression is one that will leave a mark on the gaming industry. Still, their plan to release is later in 2022, so we won't have to wait another 2 to 3 years to see this launch. As you know, I'm extremely bullish on the long-term potential of Web3 gaming. Delivery of just a handful of great products will ensure that we see many gamers flock from traditional to Web3 gaming for the long term. For more details on why that's the case, you can see my video in the link below that describes why Web3 gaming is inevitable. However, the real measure of the success in this space is not when we refer to games like Nor as crypto games or Web3. As Brooks recently stated very eloquently, we're building a game platform that also utilizes crypto. Ideally for us, the goal is in 2 years that people not call us a crypto gaming platform, but instead just a gaming platform. If Nor is successful in their transition, I may have to create a multi-dimensional map that highlights completely different monetization approaches compared to the rest of the gaming industry. To coin a phrase, I may have to call it my map of the gaming metaverse. And now you know what Annie knows about Nor and the future of PlayFi.